David Benavidez and his father launched verbal barbs at Canelo and label him as a fake Mexican. They also discuss a potential clash with Charlo. Caleb Plant defeats Caleb Truax over 12 rounds in a relatively unimpressive win over a faded and considerably aged former champion, and find out what Plant had to say in regard to a potential clash with Canelo at a future date. Like always, make sure to subscribe to the channel for a lot more unbiased boxing content to come. In a video where Benavidez and his father were watching and critiquing Caleb Plant's fight with Truax on the Barbershop Conversation channel, link in the description box below, David and his dad made bold claims and said that Canelo was a fake Mexican, to which the host thought would be the best course of action to take going forward in order to potentially entice Alvarez into a fight. But here's the thing, Saul Canelo Alvarez was indeed born in Mexico, raised in Mexico, and lives in Mexico. How's he a fake Mexican? You can't deem an individual as being a member or not of a particular nationality based exclusively on racial features or the lack thereof. A diverse country such as the United States, Canada, or Mexico can have a wide array of different ethnicities that all share the same nationality. But enough of that talk though, now back to the sport. In the video they also discussed a fight with Charlo, and David Benavidez is at the point where he feels that he no longer needs a Canelo or Caleb Plant because there's another great name in the mix by way of Jermall Charlo. He feels it would be the best course of action for both fighters, that way they can continue down their paths towards landing a fight with Canelo. He also made it clear that although he respects and acknowledges Charlo's power, he feels like he would knock him out. He also recognizes that Charlo's talented, but Benavidez feels like he has a lot more tools in the shed. He claims he wants the fights where the fans don't know a clear outcome or are a lot closer to being a 50-50, and he feels like he has a lot left to show. When asked about the difficulty in making the fight with Charlo, Benavidez replied that he feels like the fight would be relatively easy to make because both fighters fight for Al Haymon under the PBC banner. Lastly, he mentioned Charlo's response to his previous challenge, in which Charlo claims to want to fight for Cinco de Mayo weekend, but seeing as how Benavidez will return mid-March, he replied with a counter date for September, and I think that would be great. Could you guys imagine Caleb Plant and Canelo locking horns in September? And on that very undercard, since it would be provided by the PBC, you get Charlo and Benavidez going at it to decide who will challenge Canelo next. That would truly be an amazing card, and that could potentially shift the sport back to when they would actually stack the undercards of boxing pay-per-views, instead of just giving us a bunch of filler fights or showcases before the main events like they used to back in the old day. Now, Caleb Plant successfully defended his belt when he outboxed an underwhelming and over-the-hill fighter in Caleb Truax en route to a 12-round unanimous decision. Caleb did what he had to do. Not much else to say in regard to the fight itself. In fact, the outcome was so predictable that some random loaded bloke had to wager $285,000 in order for him to win just $5,000. In fact, you know a boxer faced an overmatched opponent when the bulk of his highlights for the night are from his post-fight interview and not the fight itself. In said interview, Plant evaluated his performance and he felt like he put on a great performance, and it showed because of how unscathed he came out of the fight, which I think has more to do with the level of opponent he was fighting rather than purely his skills and talents. Although he is good at what he does, I think it'd be a different story if he were to face somebody more difficult. When Canelo was brought up, Caleb made it clear that he wants to become the first undisputed world champion in the history of the super middleweight division, and that whoever is in the way, it wouldn't matter. Just get them lined up, and he claimed that he would knock them down right on the very network, which was the Fox network. He went on to reinstate the comment about the whole Fox network and fight taking place there. Now, I honestly find that quite a bit worrisome. First, Caleb claims that he won't chase anybody because he feels like he's the big dog at 168 just a few days ago, and now he says he'll face anyone who stands in his way of becoming undisputed without naming names, which is going to be either Canelo or Saunders, but then he makes it abundantly clear that he plans to only fight them on his terms. In other words, the whole quote-unquote Fox network situation. So which one is it? Does he really want those fights? And if so, is he willing to make a jump to another network for a fight with Canelo or Saunders for all the belts, or will he remain adamant about fighting them on Fox? This almost smells like a backdoor exit setup in case he opts to not fight the winner of Canelo Saunders. Seriously, Caleb Plant seems to be more elusive outside of the ring than inside of it at this point. Benavidez has been wanting to fight with Caleb for years now. Canelo tried getting him in the ring last year, and now when Canelo's looking to pick up his third belt in the division in May, and thus leaving Plant as the last man standing between Canelo and his goal of becoming undisputed, now all of a sudden Caleb wants to let the world know that he's willing to take those meaningful fights, but they would have to take place on Fox. Canelo's 100 times the name and star Caleb is, and yet Plant seems to be the one acting like the diva here. Regardless, I think Canelo wouldn't have an issue making the jump and would easily clear the network hurdle that Plant is attempting to place on the road to the fight. Remember, once the fight with Saunders is through, Canelo has no need for Hearn or the DAZN platform. If he does indeed beat Saunders in May, then that also marks the end of his 2-fight deal with Hearn, and thus opening him up for any fight on any network. Either way, what do you guys think about Caleb's performance against Truex? Is he beginning to set up roadblocks for a potential showdown with Alvarez? How interested are you guys in Charlo versus Benavidez, and who takes that fight? Thank you all for tuning in and subscribing, and for those who are yet to subscribe, please make sure you do, and stay tuned for a lot more unbiased boxing content. Like always, this is Shay from Kimi Boxing, signing out.